Mercedes-Benz is one of the most respected car brands on the planet, a name synonymous with engineering excellence and luxury. But here's something most people don't know. The company almost died in a garage in Germany, killed not by a lack of genius, but by a lack of nerve. Its inventor, Carl Benz, had built the world's first true automobile, and yet he was too afraid to show it to the world. It would take his wife, acting entirely behind his back, stealing his own invention out of his workshop before dawn, to convince humanity that the horseless carriage wasn't a dangerous toy. For Bertha Ringer was born on May 3, 1849 in Pforzheim, Germany, into a wealthy and well-respected family. But on the very day she was born, her father wrote a single line in the family Bible that said everything about how the world saw girls at the time. Unfortunately, only a girl again. For a daughter born into wealth in the 1800s, life had already been mapped out. Marriage, children, a quiet domestic existence. Higher education and technical knowledge simply weren't part of the plan. But Bertha never quite fit the mold she was handed. While other girls were steered toward needlework and etiquette, she gravitated toward science. When her father once explained to her how a steam locomotive worked, she was completely transfixed. 10 years at a boarding school in Pforzheim only deepened that fascination. By the time she reached adulthood, Bertha wasn't just curious about machines. She understood them. In 1869, at a local social gathering, Bertha met a young engineer named Carl Benz. Carl had a singular obsession: building a horseless carriage, a vehicle that could move under its own power without a horse pulling it. To most people at the time, this sounded less like innovation and more like lunacy. There was no roadmap, no industry, no precedent. But where others heard a fantasy, Bertha heard a future worth investing in. The two became engaged, and in 1870, 2 full years before they were even married, Bertha did something almost unthinkable for a woman of her era. She handed over her own dowry to fund Carl's failing ironworks business, giving him the capital to launch a new venture, Benz and Company. Without that money, Carl Benz never builds an engine. There's no patent, no company, and certainly no Mercedes. The two were married in 1872, and from that point forward, Bertha wasn't just Carl's wife. She was his investor, his engineer, and very often, the only person who still believed in him. For the next several years, Carl worked obsessively on his engine, and Bertha worked right alongside him. This wasn't a marriage where she waited at home while he toiled in the workshop. She got her hands dirty, literally winding the wire ignition coils needed to spark the engine to life. On New Year's Eve in 1879, after years of failed attempts, the engine finally ran. It was a small victory, but it was proof the dream wasn't crazy after all. Still, turning a working engine into an actual vehicle people could ride in took years more. By December 1885, Carl had finally completed his first true automobile. Carl was a brilliant engineer, but he was a terrible salesman, and the patent motor wagon sat largely ignored while his confidence quietly crumbled. As months turned into years without a single real sale, Carl grew increasingly cautious. He kept tinkering, kept finding reasons to delay, kept convincing himself the car simply wasn't ready yet. Bertha watched this happen, and she understood something her husband didn't want to admit. The car wasn't the problem. His fear was. So on the morning of August 5th, 1888, Bertha made a decision that would change automotive history forever. And she made it without asking permission from anyone, least of all her husband. While Carl was still asleep, she quietly woke up her 2 oldest sons, Eugen and Richard, just 13 and 15 years old. Together, the three of them pushed the motor wagon out of the workshop and down the road by hand, far enough that the engine's noise wouldn't wake Carl when she finally started it. She left him a short note on the kitchen table. They were going to visit her mother in Pforzheim, roughly 106 kilometers away. What followed has gone down as the world's first long-distance road trip, but calling it a trip barely does it justice. The roads were unpaved. There were no gas stations, because gasoline as fuel for cars didn't exist yet as a commercial product. When the tank ran low, Bertha stopped at a small pharmacy in the town of Wieslach and bought several liters of Legroin, a cleaning solvent, simply because it happened to burn. That pharmacy is still recognized today as the world's very first fueling station. When a fuel line clogged, she cleared it using her hat pin. When an ignition wire short-circuited, she insulated it using a strip from her own garter. When the wooden brakes wore down to nothing, she stopped at a cobbler's shop and had him fit them with leather, accidentally inventing the brake pad, a solution the entire automotive world would still be using more than a century later. And when the engine simply couldn't power the car up a hill, she and her sons got out and pushed it themselves. After more than 12 hours on the road, they finally reached Pforzheim. Bertha sent Carl a single telegram. They had made it. A few days later, Bertha and her sons drove the very same route back to Mannheim, giving Carl a first-hand look at exactly what his invention could and couldn't handle. Every flaw she uncovered along the way, the need for a lower gear to climb hills, the need for better brakes, went straight into the next generation of the vehicle. But the real victory wasn't technical. It was psychological. People along the route had been stunned watching this strange, growling machine rattle past them on public roads, and that stunned reaction was exactly the kind of attention Carl's invention desperately needed. For the first time, ordinary people could see with their own eyes that a horseless carriage wasn't a parlor trick. It could go the distance. Before Bertha's drive, every test of the motor wagon had been a short, supervised loop that ended right back where it started. She was the one who proved it could actually take you somewhere. Bertha Benz never settled into being remembered as the supportive spouse standing quietly behind a famous man. She was a financial backer, a hands-on engineer, and by every account from those who knew her, a woman of formidable will. While raising 5 children and running a household, as was expected of women in her time, she was simultaneously helping steer the business and pushing her husband to trust his own abilities every time his confidence failed him. Over the following decades, Benz & Company grew into one of the largest automobile manufacturers in the world. In 1926, the company merged with the firm founded by Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach, forming Daimler-Benz, the company that would eventually carry the name we know today, Mercedes-Benz.